Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hope's life had always been a whirlwind of emotions, family drama, and impossible choices, but nothing could have prepared her for the revelation that had upended everything she thought she knew about her future. It started on a seemingly ordinary afternoon at Forrester Creations, where the usual hum of creative energy and quiet tension between the rivalries of Ridge, Brooke, and the younger generation filled the air. Hope had been wrestling with a secret she couldn't ignore any longer, a secret that had grown heavier with every passing day. She was pregnant. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of her feelings, her instincts telling her one thing, while her heart screamed another. She had always loved Liam, and he had always been the center of her emotional world, the one who understood her in ways that others couldn't. But recent weeks had been turbulent, marked by misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and a growing sense that maybe their timing was never quite right. And then there was Thomas, whose quiet strength and unwavering attention had gradually drawn her in, offering a stability she hadn't realized she craved until the thought of becoming a mother brought it into sharp focus. He had been there for her in small ways at first, listening when no one else would, offering encouragement without judgment, giving her space when she needed it most, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Hope had begun to feel a connection that felt deeper than friendship, more urgent than romance, more complicated than she could ever have anticipated. Her emotions collided in a chaotic mix of guilt, longing, and desire, leaving her sleepless nights filled with questions and confessions she wasn't ready to voice. But fate, as it often did in Los Angeles, refused to give her the luxury of time. The moment came when Hope realized that waiting, hesitating, or overthinking could cost her everything she wanted. The chance to protect her child, the chance to carve out a life where she could feel safe and loved, and the chance to finally embrace a future she had only dreamed about. It was during a quiet evening at her home, while the city lights flickered through the curtains and cast shimmering reflections on the floor, that Thomas arrived with a determination in his eyes that mirrored the intensity of Hope's own hidden resolve. They didn't speak for long, not in words because words had never been enough. Instead, their hands found each other, their breaths synchronized in a moment of clarity that transcended the chaos outside, and Hope realized that in that instant, eloping wasn't just a romantic notion, it was a necessity. They left behind the fear of judgment, the heavy expectations of family, and the relentless scrutiny of the media who would inevitably turn every choice into a spectacle. In the quiet of a small chapel far from the prying eyes of Los Angeles, Hope and Thomas exchanged vows that were both tender and resolute, acknowledging not just their love for each other but their shared responsibility for the life growing inside her, the life that demanded courage, commitment, and the unwavering certainty that they were stronger together than apart. Yet, even as the ceremony concluded and the first flickers of dawn hinted at a new day, the reverberations of their decision began to ripple across the Forrester family and beyond. Liam, blindsided by the news, grappled with a tidal wave of emotions ranging from shock and heartbreak to confusion and disbelief. Brooke, ever the matriarch and a woman whose heart was always caught between duty and empathy, struggled to process the reality that her daughter had made a choice without consulting the people who had raised her, loved her, and fought tirelessly for her happiness. Ridge, torn between his protectiveness of Hope and the lingering sense of loyalty to Liam, faced a tempest of inner conflict that left him pacing in the halls of Forrester Creations, trying to make sense of the chaos that seemed to follow every Forrester and their allies like an unavoidable storm. Meanwhile, Thomas, usually the calmest and most calculating among the younger generation, felt the weight of his decision more acutely than he expected. He knew that this path, while brimming with love and hope, was fraught with complications, rivalries, and potential heartbreak that could resurface at any moment. Yet, standing beside Hope, feeling the life of their unborn child as a quiet heartbeat of promise, he also knew that some risks were worth taking, that love could justify defiance, and that sometimes the boldest choices yielded the most profound rewards. The news of their elopement spread like wildfire through Los Angeles society and the tight-knit circle of Forrester insiders, triggering a cascade of reactions from those whose lives intertwined with theirs in ways both obvious and subtle. Steffi, ever perceptive and fiercely loyal to her own sense of justice, found herself torn between supporting her sister and grappling with a complex mixture of envy, sorrow, and protective instincts. Poppy, who had always served as a confidant to the women of the family, watched with quiet concern, knowing that Hope's decision, while brave, had the potential to ignite tensions and create new conflicts that could resonate for years to come. Meanwhile, the boardroom at Forrester Creations became a theater of speculation, with employees whispering about the implications for the company, the family's legacy, and the delicate web of relationships that had been built over decades. Questions abounded. How would Liam react publicly? Would Brooke and Ridge intervene, or would they allow their daughter to chart her own path? Could Thomas navigate the scrutiny, the expectations, and the undeniable judgment that accompanied his newfound role as Hope's husband and the father of her child? And most pressing of all, how would Hope herself manage the whirlwind of emotions, responsibilities, and challenges that now defined her existence? The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of revelation and concealment. Hope and Thomas retreated into a cocoon of privacy, cherishing moments of intimacy and quiet planning, while bracing themselves for the inevitable confrontations that would emerge once their families and the world discovered the truth. Each morning brought new reflections: the joy of feeling their child grow, the intimacy of shared dreams, and the courage that came from knowing they had chosen each other in a world that constantly sought to pull them apart. But as they navigated this new chapter, shadows of doubt lingered at the edges of their happiness. Liam, in particular, could not be placated by explanations or apologies. His love for Hope had always been profound, a connection forged through shared history, shared trials, and the unspoken understanding that they were somehow meant to be together. Watching her choose Thomas, even with the promise of a child on the way, left him grappling with grief, rage, and a desperate longing to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. Conversations between Ridge, Brooke, and the rest of the family became charged with tension, fraught with emotion and divided loyalties. Ridge, in particular, oscillated between support for his daughter's autonomy and the paternal instinct to protect her from the storm he knew was brewing. Brooke, who had spent a lifetime mediating, advising, and occasionally controlling outcomes in the name of love, felt the weight of helplessness like never before, realizing that Hope's choices were hers alone, and that any attempt to alter the course now could fracture the family irreparably. The broader world, too, became a participant in the unfolding drama. Media outlets clamored for stories, paparazzi lurked at every turn, and social media buzzed with speculation, commentary, and judgment. Friends and allies reached out with a mixture of congratulations and caution, offering support while warning of potential pitfalls, jealous rivals, and the relentless public scrutiny that came with being part of the Forrester legacy. Through it all, Hope and Thomas relied on each other, finding solace in private moments that reminded them why they had taken this leap of faith. Every laugh, every gentle touch, every shared glance served as a reminder of the bond that had grown stronger than fear, stronger than expectation, stronger than even the most turbulent storms the Forrester family had endured over generations. But even amid their happiness, there were undercurrents of tension that could not be ignored. Secrets whispered in hallways, subtle glances exchanged in boardrooms, and the ever-present shadow of Liam's lingering presence created a complex tapestry of emotional stakes that threatened to unravel the fragile peace Hope and Thomas had fought so hard to achieve. As the weeks unfolded, pivotal moments tested their commitment. Encounters with family members who challenged their choices, unexpected revelations about past betrayals and misunderstandings, and the unrelenting pressure of preparing for a child while navigating the intricacies of their relationship, the expectations of their families, and the watchful eyes of a public invested in their every move. Yet, despite the challenges, Hope discovered a newfound strength within herself. A resilience born of love, necessity, and the unwavering desire to create a life that was authentic and true to her heart. Thomas, too, embraced a sense of responsibility and determination that went beyond romantic devotion, stepping into a role defined by courage, loyalty, and a commitment to protect both Hope and their child from the chaos that inevitably surrounded them. Each day brought growth, understanding, and moments of revelation that deepened their bond, while simultaneously reminding them that happiness, especially within the Forrester universe, was never without its complications. And so their story continued, unfolding with the complexity, intensity, and dramatic tension that had always defined the lives of those who bore the Forrester name, a story of love, choice, and the relentless pursuit of hope in the face of adversity, leaving audiences captivated, emotionally invested, and endlessly eager to witness the next twist in this unforgettable saga. The days following Hope and Thomas's secret elopement were a whirlwind of tension, emotion, and the kind of drama that seemed almost too intense for any ordinary family. But in the world of the Forresters, intensity was a way of life. Liam, blindsided and devastated, could hardly process the news, as though his mind refused to accept the reality that the woman he had loved, the woman he had envisioned a life with, had chosen someone else in a heartbeat, taking with her not only his dreams of a future together but also the life of the child growing within her, a child that was undeniably his, yet inextricably linked to Thomas as well. He felt every emotion at once: heartbreak, betrayal, confusion, anger, and even a begrudging admiration for the audacity of their choice. Liam knew that Hope had always been strong-willed, that she had always sought to follow her heart above all else, but seeing it unfold in such a public, irreversible manner left him reeling. He found himself pacing in his apartment late at night, unable to eat, unable to sleep, tormented by thoughts of what might have been, and haunted by memories of every tender moment he had shared with Hope, every whispered promise, every glance that had once held a universe of possibility. Liam's friends, including Wyatt and Steffi, watched helplessly as he oscillated between rage and despair. Wyatt, whose own complicated history with Hope and Thomas added layers of tension to his perspective, tried to offer counsel, reminding Liam that he could not control Hope's decisions, that she had the right to choose the path that felt right to her, and that in the end, the child they were about to bring into the world deserved stability and love. Steffi, equally concerned, offered a more pragmatic approach, pointing out that fighting for Hope in the heat of the moment could backfire, that patience and support, even from a distance, might ultimately allow Liam to remain a part of his child's life without causing unnecessary conflict. Despite their advice, Liam could not quell the storm inside him. His mind replayed every interaction, every subtle sign that Hope might be leaning toward Thomas, and he scoured through emails, texts, and social media posts, desperately seeking clues, hoping to understand why the woman he loved had made a choice that felt, at least to him, like an outright rejection of their shared history. Meanwhile, Hope and Thomas were settling into their new life together, a mixture of elation and anxiety coloring their days. The privacy they had sought allowed them moments of joy, quiet laughter, and the kind of intimacy that comes from shared secrets and bold decisions. But even in these early days, the consequences of their choice began to manifest in subtle yet unavoidable ways. Family members, despite initial promises to respect their privacy, could not contain their curiosity or their strong opinions. Brooke, ever the matriarch with a heart that straddled both understanding and protectiveness, struggled to reconcile her instincts to defend her daughter's independence with her desire to maintain peace within the family. She found herself oscillating between wanting to reach out to Hope, to offer guidance and love, and resisting the urge to interfere, knowing that any attempt to do so might only drive a wedge between them at a time when unity was most needed. Ridge, whose own complex history with both Hope and Thomas informed his perspective, felt the weight of paternal responsibility more acutely than ever. He understood the depth of Hope's feelings for Thomas and the logic behind their decision, but he could not ignore the potential fallout. Liam's heartbreak, the strain on his relationship with Brooke, and the broader implications for the Forrester family dynamic, which had always been a delicate balance of ambition, loyalty, and emotion. Ridge knew that the coming weeks would require tact, patience, and perhaps even intervention, though he feared that any move could exacerbate the situation. On the corporate front, Forrester Creations found itself grappling with distractions that threatened to derail ongoing projects, negotiations, and the carefully maintained equilibrium of the company's leadership. Employees whispered about the implications of Hope's sudden elopement, speculating on how it might impact the company, the family's public image, and even the creative direction of upcoming collections. Some sympathized with Hope, seeing her as a young woman taking control of her destiny, while others questioned the wisdom of such a hasty decision, concerned that personal matters might bleed into the professional sphere. Amid this turmoil, Thomas assumed a role that was both unexpected and daunting. No longer just the charming, sometimes misunderstood member of the younger generation, he now carried the responsibility of supporting Hope, protecting her from external pressures, and preparing for the arrival of their child. His demeanor reflected a newfound maturity, a focus sharpened by circumstance, yet he remained deeply aware of the delicate balance they had to maintain. Any misstep, any public miscommunication, could reignite conflict with Liam, provoke tension with Ridge and Brooke, and even invite scrutiny from friends and colleagues who watched their every move. Hope herself was a study in contrasts, caught between elation and anxiety, love and fear, freedom and responsibility. Every day brought new challenges, managing the physical realities of pregnancy, navigating the emotional aftermath of leaving Liam, and finding the courage to embrace a life that, though chosen freely, was still fraught with uncertainty. She leaned on Thomas, drawing strength from his support, his unwavering presence, and the quiet reassurance that they were in this together. Yet, even in their strongest moments, Hope could not ignore the lingering questions. How would Liam cope? How would the family respond? And how could they ensure that their child entered the world surrounded by love, rather than conflict? As news of the elopement spread, Liam finally confronted Hope, an encounter that was as intense as it was emotional. Meeting in a neutral location, chosen to avoid immediate family intervention, Liam faced the woman he loved with tears in his eyes, his voice trembling with suppressed anger and heartbreak. "Hope," he began, struggling to maintain composure. "I don't even know where to start. How could you do this without talking to me? Without even giving me a chance?" Hope, her own eyes glistening, reached for his hand, a gesture both tender and sorrowful. "Liam, this isn't about hurting you. It's about our child, about what I felt was the right decision for me, for the life growing inside me. I didn't want to fight, I didn't want conflict. I just needed to choose a path that felt safe, that felt real." The words hung heavy in the air, a mixture of truth, regret, and unwavering resolve. Liam's response was a torrent of emotion, a cascade of love, anguish and frustration that reflected years of shared history and countless unspoken bonds. He accused, pleaded, and demanded understanding, yet somewhere beneath the intensity of his feelings was the recognition that Hope had made her choice, that this chapter of her life was no longer within his control, and that he would have to navigate his own heartbreak while respecting the boundaries she had established. Ridge and Brooke, informed of the confrontation, grappled with their own conflicting emotions. Ridge, torn between support for his daughter and loyalty to Liam, worried that the situation could escalate beyond control, igniting rifts that might last for years. Brooke, whose heart always seemed to carry the weight of every family member's pain, feared for both Liam and Hope, understanding that love, while powerful, could also be painfully destructive when choices collided with expectation. In the days that followed, family gatherings, casual encounters, and even professional meetings became charged with tension. Conversations that once flowed with ease now carried undercurrents of unspoken questions, glances filled with judgment, and an awareness that everyone was watching, waiting, and wondering what would happen next. Friends attempted to mediate, offer advice, or simply provide a listening ear, but the complexity of emotions, loyalties, and past grievances meant that no single voice could settle the storm. Poppy, as ever, remained a steadfast confidant, helping Hope navigate both emotional and practical challenges, offering guidance on everything from prenatal care to coping with family drama, and providing the kind of grounded perspective that allowed Hope to maintain clarity amidst the chaos. Yet, even with support, moments of doubt crept in. Hope questioned whether she had made the right decision, whether she was doing justice to Liam, to Thomas, and to the child she carried. She feared that her choice, while necessary in her mind, might ultimately hurt the people she loved most, and she struggled with the balance between autonomy and responsibility, between love and obligation. Meanwhile, Thomas wrestled with his own internal conflicts. He had chosen to support Hope wholeheartedly, to embrace the future they were building together. Yet he could not ignore the potential consequences of their elopement. Liam's grief, Ridge and Brooke's unease, and the public scrutiny that would inevitably follow. He knew that his actions would be dissected, judged, and possibly misinterpreted, but he also understood that love required risk, courage, and the willingness to face adversity head-on. The weeks continued in a delicate tension, punctuated by moments of tenderness and flashes of confrontation. Family dinners, corporate meetings, and casual encounters were all tinged with the awareness that the elopement had shifted dynamics in ways that could never be fully undone. Yet, amid the tension, there were glimmers of hope. Hope and Thomas shared quiet evenings where laughter and love reminded them of why they had taken the leap. Liam slowly began to process his grief and reconsider how he could remain a part of his child's life without causing conflict. And Ridge and Brooke, while wary, recognized that their daughter's happiness and autonomy were paramount, even if it meant stepping back and allowing her to navigate her own course. In this way, life moved forward, a complex blend of love, heartache, responsibility, and resilience, as the Forresters and their extended circle adapted to a new reality, one defined not just by past choices or familial expectations, but by the courage to follow the heart, to embrace change, and to confront the intricate web of emotions, relationships, and challenges that came with loving boldly, living authentically, and protecting the fragile, precious promise of a new life that represented both hope and the extraordinary possibilities of the future.